everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. How are you all doing this week? LA has been inundated. Torrential downpours, power outages in different parts of the city, including where I was on Tuesday night. Naomi wakes up at like 2 a.m. and she's like, hey, I think the power's out. And I'm like, uh-oh. Quickly look up how long the food in your fridge stays unspoiled. And it's not that long, folks. It's about 4 hours. And let's just say we did not get the power back on until 4 p.m. So I spent a lot of yesterday, I'm of course recording this intro on Thursday. Spent a lot of yesterday, late afternoon, going through a fridge and throwing out food, which was, how do I characterize this? Hey, if you haven't thrown out $200 worth of food that would have otherwise been good, you are not living life. You are not living life to its fullest. It really makes me realize that the second power outage we've had in the last, year or so, it has made me really realize how fragile the infrastructure is in which we all live. LA was not built for rain. Obviously, climate change has shifted things so that we now have a bit of a rainy season here in the spring, and the city cannot handle it. Also, I bet our power company has cut its staff to the bone in order to ensure that the people at the top are making more money. So I'm sure that's not helping things. But there's this woman whose newsletter I read. Years ago, she was the only one who was reading scientific papers about COVID and writing honestly about the damage COVID does. So I started reading her then, and slowly, as society has degraded, she's expanded the scope of what she writes about to include climate change and other kinds of impending disasters. And she's really made me aware that the line between civilization and chaos is like a quark thick, a subatomic particle thick. It's not a broad line. There are things that I never even thought of, like, hey, if things fall apart, the sewers are probably going to back up. And then you have a choice to make about what you want to do. Do you want to have a toilet that you can use, even though there's the threat that sewage is going to back up into your house? Or do you want to have a backup plan, like a compost toilet or something like that? Things I never even thought about. This writer, she used to be a professor of education, teaching somewhere in the Midwest, and she has pivoted now to becoming an electrician because she's like, I think this is what's actually going to be needed. I think this is what's going to help me and my family as things degrade further. They're in a place where climate change is really wreaking havoc. So, yeah, crazy stuff. But if there is one thing that is soothing my jangled nerves in these times, it is talking to my guests on this show. And today's guests are no different. They are spectacular. I'm talking to the Lisas, Lisa M and Lisa G from Cub. And if you don't know who Cub is, I'm going to read you their bio right now. Hailing from Vancouver, British Columbia, Lisa Marr and Robin Iwata formed Cub in 1992, and while they were only together for 5 short years, were incredibly prolific, releasing a dozen albums, EPs, and 7-inches in their half a decade as a band. After their breakup, Robin started the band I Am Spoonbender, while Lisa M and Lisa G, who joined in 1994, moved to California where they started the band Buck. Since the 90s, both Lisas have had extensive careers in film and visual art. Lisa M co-founded the Echo Park Film Center, and Lisa G is a founding member of Vancouver's Iris Film Collective. Back in mid-January, Mint Records released the 30th anniversary reissue of Cub's second album, Come Out, Come Out, and even 3 decades later, it is still fantastic. When I was a teen back in the 90s, one of the best ways to discover new music was when a band you liked covered another band, and then you would go investigate that other band. I found out about Magnetic Fields because Superchunk did a cover of 100,000 Fireflies, and I found out about Cub because They Might Be Giants did a cover of New York City. I can still remember where I was. I worked at Pathmark at the time, which is a supermarket. I worked in the dairy section, and my boss there was like, hey, as long as you get the dairy out on the shelves, you can listen to music. I don't care. And I was in the break room listening to Factory Showroom. I think I had picked it up before my shift. And it's such a good song. And then I was off to the races on Cub. So this was really exciting to get to talk to Lisa M and Lisa G. And they're wonderful. They're genuinely wonderful people to talk to. They were very open about their existential and emotional journeys to get to where they are. And I simply just had a great time talking to them. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Coming up on the show, by the way, speaking of They Might Be Giants, just talked to John Flansburgh. That's coming up soon. And hey, if you want to go into the back catalog, I talked to John Linnell a couple years ago. Also coming up, Amelia Fletcher from Heavenly, Julia Steiner from Rat Boys. Both brilliant conversations. They were both so lovely. So stay tuned for those episodes. But for now, let's talk to Lisa M and Lisa G of Cub. Because you're both named Lisa, and I usually only have one guest on. Could you both just introduce yourself just so people know the different voices? I feel like this is, now I said, hey, we just kind of roll into it. There's no formal start. I feel like now I have pulled the rug out from under you and made this more formal than I meant it to be, but it's purely an auditory sensory thing.
Makes sense. I'm Lisa G. For this purpose, I am the drummer of Cub and an otherwise creative person.
And I'm Lisa Marr, and luckily I'm wearing my prom dress today because it is formal. So I got ready. I'm ready, and I still am, I guess, the singer for Cub, because we were singing the other night at our record release party, and I was the bass player and sang most of the songs and wrote a lot of the songs, brought in the initial songs, but all a full band effort. And of course, Robin Iwata, guitar player, songwriter, backup singer, sometimes drummer, not here with us today, but here in spirit.
Okay, as you guys were both talking, it made me think, when people do, when I'm interviewed or when my wife is interviewed, we're interviewed for a specific thing. And then we somehow, and I don't aim to do this, and I don't want to, but like you get reduced to that thing because you're now trying to collapse the entirety of your creative careers, which span decades and which are multidisciplinary, into one kind of short biographical thing. And I was like, what is it? How does it feel? Like, can you do that and just toss it off? Like, is it just like, yeah, this is a thing I have to do? I always, and maybe you get this from when we were talking before we started recording, I am constantly like, well, is that the right thing? Or how is this? Or how do I characterize myself so that I'm giving the person I'm talking to an honest understanding of me? When no one, you don't care. You're like, yeah, as long as like, I'm not talking to like a weirdo or like some kind of MAGA freak or whatever, right? You're like, I'm okay with this. You don't have to be, and you can kind of excise the stuff. But do you, like, how do you feel about having like a decades-long creative career and having to kind of be like, well, I'm blank here, or I'm blank at this spot in my life?
I think you've just described my existential crisis for my entire life. So I totally relate to the question, and I feel very annoyed if I'm misunderstood, but I'm also old enough to go, okay, I know why we're doing this right now. So distill the best. And I'm really trying to not second guess myself, but I totally hear you. Like I've always hated the label. Like, what do you do? It's like, how long do you have? And then I will make my answer in the time allotted that you have to listen.
Well, we contain multitudes. So talk to me today, talk to me tomorrow. I think especially maybe with those present in this room, we do a lot of different things. And some of them are, a similar thing. And maybe some things would be surprising to people what our interests are. But, that's any person. And that's why, it's always nice to keep finding out new things about people, even if you've known them for years. So, yeah, we do all kinds of stuff. But here today, we're talking about Cub, C-U-B.
Is it okay? But here's the thing: is it any person? This is where I like get stuck in this. I'll see some people, some people on social media, and obviously that's a distorted version of existence. But their bio, here, bodybuilder, father, there's the two things, and that's my life. And then for the listener, I raised up my arms as if I was flexing. But there's me, and then I go back to this a lot, and I haven't thought of it in a while, but. In Annie Hall, he goes. Let's not talk about Woody Allen, but I can't stop. I can't. I have to say that just to feel okay with myself, because I can't stop Annie Hall from having influenced me when I was a kid. But he goes and he talks to this kind of fit couple, and he's like, "Well, how do you guys make it work?" And they're like, "Well, this is paraphrasing. I can't remember the exact line, but it's like, well, we're dumb and we're unsophisticated." And so, that's how we were able to have a relationship. And I'm like, is that just him being an asshole, or is that really a lot of people?
All I can say is if I take the time to talk to anybody, I always learn something. And I always pretty much learn something interesting. There's very few people. I'm not saying it's all positive, but I'm saying that people are interesting. When you when you take a lot of photographs and you go back to your photographs and you're like, man, why did I take this picture of this mountain? I don't even, whatever. But here's a human face. This is just me. But when I go back through my pictures, the ones I'm gravitating to are the ones with humans and animals in them, faces, So I don't know. I think humans are interesting. I think, we all got a story to tell.
And we also change through our life. If you would have asked me anything about myself 20 years ago, I'm a completely different person on some levels than I was. I think we are all fundamentally, probably there's some through line through us, but I think that I for sure gravitate toward different things now. But I echo Lisa. I love humans. I love the human story. I love anything about what is going on in your brain. This could flip at any time, and we want to know more about you. That would be interesting. I love people. I'm the same as you, Lisa, exactly the same.
Okay. I think you're both right. But also then, as you were talking, I flash back to some part when I lived in New York. I flash back to some party in someone's Queens apartment where I was talking to some finance bro, and I was trying to be polite and open, like you were both saying. And it was so boring to hear about. And I kept asking, because this was post financial collapse in 2008. So I was somewhat literate in how it all worked. And I was asking these questions, but his point of view was from the point of view of capital. So it was kind of dull. And the answers weren't that interesting. And that was the sum total of this person, at least in this conversation. So yes, I think you're both. I go back to this kind of yeah, you're right. But also I don't know. Sometimes in the concrete, when I do talk to random person X, it's very disappointing.
But don't you think, I think I've had conversations with people the way they walk away and will go, she is so fucking boring or dumb or whatever. And then it's because of the day, the energy, whatever it is. And I think that guy could be, depending on his day or whatever. Also, we're trained SEALs. So when we're at a party, we're all doing our thing. So I think it's I don't know. It's trying to meet people where they're at certain periods of time. And we don't connect with everybody also.
Yeah, both things can be true. And no one needs to be right or wrong on this. It's just, who do you encounter at what day, what time? Yeah, we're not always at our best. I'm not always at my best for sure, but yeah, and you're not gonna resonate with everybody for sure. There's lots of people that I would find boring too. Yeah, but maybe if I met them in another time or place, maybe they would be less boring, or maybe they'd be fascinating. I don't know. I'm willing to just take it day by day at this point.
How dare you both react to my question with empathy and make me reconsider the basic tenets of what I was saying. But it makes me think, going back to the original kind of question about how do you define yourself, especially when you are an artist working in different mediums over decades. how do you start to think of yourself? And yes, I think Lisa M, you had said, you know, I contain multitudes, right? And that is true. But like, how do you, in a normal day, if you were just confronted with having to conceive of yourself, do you think, are you okay with being an amorphous being that does have these different pathways contained inside you? Or do you struggle to kind of come to some kind of existential coherence, let's say, about yourself?
Amorphous being over here. Amorphous being. More as I get older. It doesn't really matter that much to me, really, who I am, what you call me, what people think of me, what people say about me. That all matters less and less as I get older. And that is honestly true. So I don't care. To me, I don't care. I want to be, I want to be a peaceful human on earth right now. That's what I'm striving to be. If someone could say, yeah, she's a peaceful human, I'd say, great. I made it. But whatever, all the other things are part of me. This led up to me getting here.
I agree. I think getting older is helping me be less angsty and worried about what every other, can you swear?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, fucking people think, you know, like I really don't, like now it's an exciting time to start to, but I will always be an existentialist. I think I'm always like questioning why I'm here, but creativity has been a way that I make sense of the world. And creativity is like, me and my wife say, do we have an interesting life? We're always seeking an interesting life. And it's like through creativity most of the time that we find an interesting path forward. So without it, I'd probably be insane and in a closet crying, which I do anyway on a regular basis, but less so as I get older and not care.
Okay, so want an interesting life, want to be a peaceful human. I am curious if those are goals that you can trace back to earlier in your life, or are those just things that have emerged as you've kind of started to understand yourselves later?
For me, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be famous, and I was very ambitious, and I was very ruthless in pursuing those goals. Let's just say that. Yeah, I was very different. And as a young child, I was extremely shy, painfully shy, and didn't really want to be noticed so much by people in general, although I like to be applauded for my accomplishments. So yeah, I would say it's a road, it's a journey, it's a path, it's the teachers you meet along the way, it's the experiences you have, and yeah, interesting life. I've been blessed to live one, and I still am constantly excited and challenged and gifted by things that happen in my life, and surrounded by amazing, beautiful, creative people, and maybe becoming more of a teacher helps with that, because it's about giving and receiving, not just take. So yeah.
That shows you are not native born American.
No. True. But again, come on, let's cut the Americans a little slack right now.
I don't know. I've lived my entire life here. I don't know how much slack I'm gonna. No, there are. Look, so hold on. I want to get to you, Lisa G, in a second. But there are promising things in terms of like how people are fighting back against ICE, building community ways of. I don't want to say too much, just in case. Certain ways of communicating with your neighbors to alert people about ICE. Other way, I don't think we have the capacity or the consciousness, the kind of labor consciousness to have a general strike, but there are promising like steps in that direction. So I don't want to paint it too badly. There are some good things here, but overall, at least for the ruling class type people, it's kind of shitty. So anyway, Lisa G, the existential path, was it always something you're like, I want to live an interesting life? Or is that something that developed later?
Well, first of all, I want to say I learned that Lisa Marr was shy when she was little, and I didn't know that. So that's adorable. So I'm a little bit enjoying that. And yeah, I think for me, I was always curious and I was very gregarious. I was always often told to chill out a little, cool it. I performed in my, neighborhood as Cher anytime I could. Like I wanted to just gobble everything up all the time. And a lot of it was the creative parts. Like I was terrible in math. I couldn't do science, like all the body stuff, like the eyeball in high school. Like I really pulled away
like
from
dissecting an eyeball?
Oh my God. Yeah. All that stuff. I couldn't do any of the a lot of the things that we were supposed to do, but the creative stuff I loved. Like I loved to draw. Still remember I think it was grade 3. I cried when I saw Van Gogh's painting. Like it was this weird moment for me. And I was like, whoa. And whatever that represented to me was whatever I wanted to do. And it felt like, and it wasn't painting. It was just the feeling, the ability to have a feeling from a thing or an experience from a work of art. And I think that from that moment, I was like, whatever that is, I want to try to do that myself somehow, whatever that is.
So you were a sensitive kid. Was that accepted by your family, or were they kind of like, hey, tamp it down?
They were the beginnings of the tamp it down a bit, like, and then it carried on into the world where I would look around and go like, whoa, the thing that I really want to do is probably too wild for this situation. And I learned very quickly to kind of maybe not do the thing or say the thing that I really wanted to do. And a lot of it was like perform or sing or, touch people in ways they didn't want to be touched. Like it was always like, whoa, Lisa.
So wait, are you...
That sounded creepy, but it didn't.
No. I knew what you meant. Surprise someone emotionally.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're repressing this stuff. Does it come out in other ways, or are you just totally repressing it? And then, I don't know, like at some point you then have to let it out at some age, or like, how does it develop?
Well, I think there's different things. I was repressing certainly some parts of my personality, but there were the valves of creativity. So I would do pottery in schools or sewing, or like I did the acceptable things that I could figure out that allowed little valves of creativity to happen. And then there was just, I think some parts of my, I don't know how to explain it, but like some parts of my maybe personality, I would just, cut off a bit of it, like dull it a little bit or something so I knew I would be as acceptable as I could be. But I mean, being involved in different things like performing or band or whatever, you were allowed to be a little bit weirder, a little bit. And I did start drinking in grade 8. And there's where a big part was that was a valve that was now, 8 years sober, but it took me a long time, but that was massive for me. Yeah. So booze was my excuse to be crazy.
Oh.
But really it was just my brain coming out in the way. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah. That's my question was that I don't know how you can even answer this, but let's say you had a family that was just like, yeah, go be creative and fun and do whatever you want. In that world, do you think you start drinking that early?
Well, I think I started drinking because it was this amazing elixir that made me feel relaxed and could do what I wanted to do and say what I wanted to say. And then people would be like, oh, that Lisa, she is a crazy drunk or whatever. And it was a reason. And then this is me being an adult in tons of therapy, looking back and going, oh, yeah, those are all things I wanted to do in my brain if I was straight. Now that I'm always sober, I still have these ideas, but I just don't need the booze necessarily to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
I want to come back to this, but Lisa M., I wrote this down. Shy, arrow, ambition, and then I think you also said ruthless. and then arrow pointing down, humanist. And that's my characterization of it. How do these three stages happen? Like, how do you go from someone, I ask this on the show a lot because a lot of people say they're shy when they're young. I go, well, how do you become a performer? If your main, like, I'm not shy necessarily. I am just like, I hate fucking up in public. I hate the feeling of like, if I'm on stage, like when I did improv a lot and I would say something and there would just be silence, that feeling was like one of the worst feelings in the world. Or like when I was in a band, I'd hit a bad chord. No one cares. Like, you hit a bad chord, you move on, right? But like in my head, I'm like, well, that's it. No one's made a worse mistake than that.
Yeah. I'll just say that I also started drinking in 8th grade and smoking weed, but I think I put it down to like maybe like it's also very Canadian to do these things. You know, as children, we go out into the bush often. I don't know about Richmond, but like where I lived in various sort of like, you know, there were urban communities, but sort of semi also near the woods and stuff. So you just drive out to the woods and get blitzed. I mean, that's just what everybody did, right? But anyways, that's another story for another time. But like for me, I think how do you get from being shy to performing? Because you're looking for love, right? So I think there's that, but also I relate to that perfectionist thing where like, so you had to be like top caliber, you couldn't make any mistakes, and you wanted people to love you, but because you're like a perfectionist, people are kind of like not into that maybe so much, you know, like it's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy because you can never live up to your own expectations for yourself that you've, you know, been put upon. But, you know, I was a very smart child, a very like, you know, as an early reader. That's one of the reasons I love music so much, is because I just love words and I loved singing and I loved reading. And I was shy, but I was also super bossy. So, you know, there's like these kind of, you know, it's just, I wasn't like shy and retiring. I was shy, but also wanted to control everybody. So, you know, it's just all kinds of stuff going on. It's all kinds of wild stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. So how do you get there? Yeah. I think I also just developed into my own self. My parents were always like, go out and do something crazy. It was kind of the opposite to Lisa's, you know, upbringing. They were like, go away, go out and don't come back. Like, go have an adventure and don't be just like sitting in the backyard reading, you know, Tiger Beat magazine or whatever I love to do. You know, my dream is just like hiding in a corner reading all day. Like no one bother me, you know, but it was like, no, go out, do this. My mom literally shoved me on stage at Shakey's Pizza during my 3rd grade birthday party. Because there was some lady, you know, Shakey's Pizza, kind of like old timey, like, you know, that whole like 1890s craze that kind of happened in like the 70s. There was like some ice cream place called Farrell's in the United States that was like old timey. There was like an old timey trend. You know, people were into the roaring 20s, 1890s, you know, like old fashioned stuff was popular.
Spaghetti Factory.
Yeah, Spaghetti Factory. Yeah. You ever been there? Spaghetti Factory?
No. Cheesecake Factory, sure.
This is before that. This is like Tiffany lamps, silent movies, some old trolley car. You know, it's like this weird thing that in the 70s people were obsessed with. Yeah, the 1890s to like the 1920s. People were crazy about these times. So anyways, it was this place called, well, there's still Shakey's Pizza. It's still around.
Yeah, there's a real rundown one over on Sunset Boulevard.
Exactly, if that thing is still even open. But yeah, that one. But back in the day, they'd always have some lady playing a piano, like, you know, like the entertainer.
Like a ragtime, like in a...
Yeah, like the entertainer or whatever, you know, like the ragtime. And anyways, this woman made the horrible statement of like, if anyone wants to get up and sing something, and my mom's like, you. So she just like pushed me on the stage. And so I sang Here Comes Peter Cottontail. That was my, you know, oeuvre at that time. So yeah, and then I learned how to play guitar from like a draft dodging hippie up here in Vancouver, and I just kind of I liked it. I liked doing that. But so I started just doing my stuff, and being the oldest child and of 2 girls, I was kind of like the boy in the family. So I just kind of did whatever I wanted to do. You know, it wasn't like we didn't have these kind of gender-based roles really in our family. So just kind of started doing stuff, and that included playing music and hanging out, and whatever led me to wanting to be in a band. So yeah.
I want to talk about the ambition part because that's the stuff that jumped out to me. But I have to ask, in that moment of being shoved on stage, is that a moment of, oh, this is it? And obviously you can't, I don't know how you could, as a child, I don't think there's a recognition like, oh, I feel good in this moment. But like, I know if that would have happened to me, I probably would have freaked out.
Yeah, it was scary, but it was, I wouldn't really say it was fun, but I did it, and then I was always into like, we would always do these, musicals in our school. So we did Jesus Christ Superstar when I was in 6th grade. So that was more my jam. Like then it was like, okay, like there's a bunch of people, we learn all the words, we got costumes, we're like doing dances and people come and see that. So that's when I really like came alive. I would say it was musical theater that was the jam. And just, music in general, rock music, listening to the radio all the time, knowing all the songs on the radio. So those two things kind of as a preteen coming into those two worlds. Yeah.
Lisa G, your parents, when they're telling you to tamp things down, is it about propriety? Is it about embarrassment? Like what's going on with their reaction to you being what I would call a normal child?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, there were some parts of it that I think we resonated, and that was like the reading quietly. I love that. They didn't think I was a weird kid when I spent a lot of time in my room alone. Like there were some parts of it that were good. It more felt like you've seen those kids that are like vibrating and getting ideas and wanting to do stuff and can't sit still. I think it's more that, like maybe just calming me down. And it was fine because then luckily I could go out with with the neighbor kids and put on a show and put on energy into, like, if we're talking about, elementary school age. So I did, then you run around and then everybody plays games that are thoroughly scary, like the games we played near nightfall. You know what I mean? Those ones where they're like, if we catch you, we're going to tie you to a tree, like that kind of stuff. I loved it. I loved hiding in the bush and going, oh my God, if I get caught, I might be killed tonight or whatever. Terrified. But it's energy. It was like exciting and weird and that stuff. So I still had that, but there was that other, school was like that. Sometimes home life, you had to be very quiet sitting when it was like family dinner, like, why don't you stand on the table and sing, like, or something fun like that, like, but it had to be more contained in various social situations.
Yeah.
Kind of in a segmented way. I feel like our growing up time, like you were supposed to be one way at school, one way at home with the family, one way with your friends. You had a lot of freedom. You could go and be those weird things with your friends, but a lot of times you couldn't, you weren't supposed to act wild at certain points or speak out, or it was still kind of seen and not heard vibes in certain situations, I think.
For sure.
Time.
Yeah.
No, I get that. It was still the same way. I mean, I'm from Pennsylvania, which is other side of the country, in the 80s. Still same relative thing where it's like I was the same, buzzing with energy, very creative, always coming up with ideas and stories and things like that. But I don't think my parents got me. They still don't. Very nice people. Let's just caveat this with like, love my parents. Very nice upbringing, all this kind of stuff. But they didn't get me, and they were of the generation where there's not like trying to get me. They're just like, what's he doing? Why is he weird? Why is he doodle? Like, it was like, I mean, I've talked about this in therapy where it's just like, why do they have a problem with my doodles? Like, I would doodle weird little creatures. And it's just like, my therapist was like, I don't know. It's like, their reaction is their reaction. It's up to you to figure that out, how to deal with it. But like, I get that kind of thing. And I'm curious about at the time, do you have a conscious thought about, I don't like how this is, and I'm going to like push away from it. I'm going to figure out my own path. Or are you just kind of instinctually reacting and pushing against them?
For me, I think it was more instinctual, and I think I wasn't like specifically, I don't want to be you, but I was just so excited to do things. And then I did find that at a certain age, maybe my teen years, I started to almost do the opposite of what my dad wanted me to do. Like, even if I wanted to do the thing, and then he'd say, like, do it or whatever. And then I'd be like, what? He's telling me to do it. Well, now I'm not going to do it. Like, then I got very like confrontational and a little bit like rebellious specifically to him. But it's like, there was this hope. They're immigrant parents too. So they just wanted me, mostly my dad wanted me to have a job and be a regular thing that he could, to his friends at work, say, she's a teacher. She does an office job. And he could not for the life of him. My brother was the same, also creative. He was like, why can't I just say one thing about what they do? Or why don't they just stick to one thing? And he's like, oh, you're going to change your mind and do something else. And I'd be like, yep. So I think it was more intuitive, and also just trying to live like something exciting.
Yeah. So it is. So again, to this like early question about, are you comfortable living in the gray area of existence, being an amorphous being or whatever? There is this kind of like, yeah, that's just a natural inclination. And also it's kind of like a fuck you, I'm going to do, like punk rock kind of feeling about like, you can't tell me what to do. This is all very resonant.
It's the same for you.
Yeah. Oh, except I was scared. This is the thing that like where it got tamped down for me was I was frightened that if I did something wrong or chose the wrong path, that it would reverberate for the rest of my life. And then it would just be like, the image that I always say was that I would be, in my 50s, living alone, sitting in a stained old recliner, eating a lean cuisine while watching reruns on like a dirty old TV. And that image of a possible future disciplined me for the first half of my life. Wow. How do you feel about talking to on this show with someone who is maybe possibly mentally ill?
You're talking about me?
No, me.
I had the same fear. I feared I would die alone and poor, like with no home. I still have that fear, actually. I think capitalism sucks. It makes you have to fear that.
Yeah, for sure. And I couldn't articulate. That's the thing. I couldn't articulate why I was asking you both. It's like I just knew instinctually that this didn't feel right, but I couldn't say why. It was just this feeling in me. I couldn't even articulate the feeling itself, let alone why it was there.
Interesting. I've spoken about my dad, but I will say that my mom, over the years, I would go to her whenever I had these inclinations to live like a more straight life. And every time I did, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to marry this boyfriend and move to the farmhouse and just be a housewife. And she'd go, you're not going to like it. So she would always, like, she was different than my dad in our relationship. She was always like, I'm getting an office job. That's it. I just want a regular paycheck. She'd be like, that might not be a good fit, but you do what you need to do. She could see that I was not going to do that.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
Where did they emigrate from?
Denmark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they spoke
Danish.
There's I'm like, yeah, Denmark, Danish, that's obvious. In my head, I always get the Netherlands and Denmark confused in my brain. And then I'm like, wait, what's spoken in the Netherlands?
Yeah, Dutch.
Yeah, Dutch. Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, did you also grow up in British Columbia?
I grew up in Vancouver. Yeah. I was born here.
What brought them to Vancouver?
Well, my dad's brother came first, and my dad didn't like living in a small town. He didn't want to go to the army, and he hated everybody gossiping about him. And he says that he hated the wind. So he moved. My mom and him were dating. She came to just see if it was true love. And then it was. And then she stayed.
Wait, what do you mean gossiping? Do you just mean small town kind of stuff, gossip? Or was he doing something gossip worthy?
Yeah, they hated when they would report of his activities. He's like, can't I do anything that's secret? So.
Sorry. There's my interview sense is tingling, and that there's something interesting between that. Can I just be me, but also then tamping down your energy? I don't know what the connection is, but there's something there.
I like it.
Or it
I like
feels
it.
like there's something there.
Checks in the mail. Send you a check. Like therapy.
No, it just feels like there's there's some kind of reaction
Totally.
happening, like some kind of dialectical thing going on.
I can see that. I can see that for sure.
Lisa, I told you I'd get back to the ambition thing because I am curious, how do you as an ambitious, again, quote, ruthless person, which I identify with, how does that emerge? Is that always there? And as you are finding yourself, it is becoming more prominent, or is it something that develops in you?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think after being, kind of a shy person, a bit of a wallflower, I just at a certain point I was just like, I'm going for it. I'm getting what I want. I'm getting out there. I'm taking it. I'm not waiting to be validated. I'm never going to be the prettiest. I'm never going to be I'm smart, but I'm never going to be the smartest. I'm talented, but I'm never going to be the most. But like, I just got to get out there and get in the mix. All these other jackasses are out there living the life. I went to college in the small town where we were living at the time. Then I moved to the big city, Vancouver, and went to university and I got into doing college radio because I had joined Amnesty International. I was obsessed with some things in high school. Hippies, communes, old Hollywood. There was a copy of this crazy book called Hollywood Babylon by Kenneth Anger. You know that book?
Yeah, totally.
In the public library in this very small town I lived in, they had a copy of Hollywood Babylon. So I found that. I got into really old Hollywood, like all these kind of weird things. And then, but also like human rights and communism. These are all things I was really into as a teenager. I had this amazing professor or the teacher, high school teacher, who we had this philosophy club. So we'd go and we'd debate, the big questions of life. And I was like, there's more to life than this, 30,000 person town I live in. I'm going to university. And then, so I started doing this Amnesty International radio show. This was before digital. So we would make these recordings and I have to cut the tape and splice it together. And then I met all these people at the radio station, and I was also majoring. I was going to be a lawyer, and I got derailed by creative writing. I was always a writer. So I changed my major, and my parents were like, go for it. Do what you want to do. And my parents are very like Lisa G's parents, like very straight parents, very kind of rose up out of some poverty and were solidly middle class and, really wanted their kids to have a solid foundation. But to their credit, they were just like, whatever makes you happy, you do it. We trust you. We know you're smart, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, you can do it all. You girls, get out there. Don't be silenced, to like do what you want to do. So to their credit, they always have stood by me and supported me and are excited about weird things that happen in my life. But then, then I was hanging around with all these really cool people. And I was like, what? They're doing this. They're in bands. They are going around. Travel bands are coming in. Like I'm interviewing these people that don't really, seem that smart. Like I can do this, and I wasn't worried about actually learning to be a musician. For some reason, I never worried about that part of it. Like, oh yeah, you got to play an instrument. But I did write poetry and I did write songs, and I knew a lot about song structures from listening to the radio for 20 years straight. And so I was like, I can do this. I want to do this. And so I just kind of jumped in there. So then, not really having any expectations, when Cub sort of started to get popular, I was like, I'm riding this wave. Like, we're going to do it, and I was just, give it all to me. Give it all. We deserve it. We're here. We're having fun. People like it. Like, what's to stop us? Well, sometimes what's to stop you is human emotions and life and complications and realities that you didn't really foresee. So, it was a learning thing for me. And not really a lesson I learned in necessarily at the time. It took me years to figure out what it was really all about. So the ambition was just kind of like a sidebar. You're just you're on your road to self-fulfillment, self-realization, and you have these kind of wild turns. And you realize later, like, oh yeah, it wasn't about being famous at all. It was about connecting with people that came to see this music, hear this music, and it resonated with them, and it was able to maybe empower them or spark something in them to go on their own path of realization, and do the things that maybe they didn't feel that they could do until they saw us doing them. So that was the real reason for all this. So, but yeah, that was, I needed that ambition, I guess, to propel us forward at a certain point, but it wasn't where I was meant to be, honestly.
Yeah. At the time, though, are you enjoying the connection that the music fosters, either between you guys or between you and the audience? Are you enjoying that, or is it purely I want to be famous is just a nice vehicle in order to achieve that aim? Or, you could feel both of them. You could transition from the one of the like the pure ambition into like, oh wait, I actually not just enjoy the act of creating, but enjoy what it does to other people as well. Like it doesn't have to, it's not always just one thing or the other, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just curious, like how this all comes out of you.
I think when all things are going perfect in alignment, it's all those things at once, right? You feel powerful, you feel happy, you feel fulfilled, you're meeting people that are exciting to you, and you're forming new relationships and connections, you're seeing the world, you're doing something creative that's exciting other people, you're pushing yourself in new directions creatively, all of it. It's just all kind of happening at once. But at the same time, we would have nights where we would kind of commiserate, especially Lisa and I, where we would just feel so embarrassed about being on stage. Sometimes you're just like, what am I doing here? Like, why? What is it in me that needs this pathetic display of just pure showing off, kind of like it just, sometimes it was so like, ooh, like a visceral disgust with ourselves for even doing this. So that's the flip side of it. But at least we were able to recognize it. Many don't, maybe. I don't know.
Wait, Lisa G, you were also viscerally disgusted by what? Like you guys like flubbed a song, or like just the act of it? Like, what was going on?
I think there was a lot of things going on. Like, for sure, I love the travel. I love newness. I love meeting the other bands and seeing clubs and doing all of that stuff. There's also, for me, being in the public eye was something I was not prepared for. And I think that was, even though we were obviously not uber famous, but it was famous enough where I was like, whoa, this is weird. People know me, but don't know me. And so that I found difficult to wrangle. And there was for sure some nights where I thought, wow, you played so bad. And am I even worthy to be here? Shouldn't they have a better drummer? Like, I'm bad. Also, I'm guilty of more listening to the bad reviews than the good reviews. So we would get some nice things that get said, but I was hyper focused on, yeah, that's the one I'm going to listen to. I can't play and we can't play. And it happened a lot because we were three women, I have to say. And as an older person now, I realized how much we were pitted against other women. I think we were pitted against always being compared. Like, being compared is stupid. Like, we can play a song. We don't have to be like Rush. We could have our own vibe and all this stuff. But I was so busy going, shouldn't I play better? Like, shouldn't it be different? Like I was I was 24. I was a bit of I'd say disaster, right, Lise?
Well, we were all just kind of floundering because, we really didn't have management, really. We worked with Mint Records, but we were peers. We weren't, everyone was sort of figuring it out as they went along. And, Robin being Japanese Canadian, there were, we were sometimes be playing in the South and stuff. There were all these issues around race and the way we looked. And there was someone we were featured on some like national news program in Canada. And it was about kind of this new wave of female musicians. And the host just says straight up to this woman about us, like, well, they're not very good looking, are they? And they're not very talented, are they? And just to say this when we were selling like tons of records, we were selling out shows, we were headlining, we were the #1 album for 3 months running on the college radio charts, which I don't think that has ever actually been broken, that record to this day. You know, there's these crazy things that we actually accomplished basically with spit and glue and determination and like treating it as serious fun. It was fun, but we also were organized and we worked hard together. We never were paid individually. Everything we made went back into the project. We supported each other in that way. But yet it could all be undone. And also the other side is when people really loved us, that was also could be very creepy and overwhelming. When people wanted to like hug us or like say like, you've changed my life, or like, I can't believe I'm meeting you. Like putting people on a pedestal, even again, we're not talking like, you know, we weren't Bananarama, we were Cub, you know, is it like I can't even imagine being at that echelon and being really traditionally good looking as women. I don't even know what would have happened in that case. You know, you see these young women and they go to pieces because they have all this attention and the pressure is so high. And we were still, you know, in charge of most aspects of our life, but just even saying like, why do people like us so much? Like that's embarrassing to us. Like we're just a person, like you're a person. Like why, you know, don't cry when you meet us, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's so sweet to have this emotional connection, especially for young women. So all that to say, all these things are going around in your head all the time, you know, plus you got your period and you just bled on your pants in the van, or like, you know, like all this other shit, the physical shit of existing on like cigarettes and beer and trying to, you know, score some drugs some nights because you just want to be able to go to sleep after the show, and like calling home and like having flings on the road. Like everything is just like mondo massive all at once, crazy. And you're in a weird position that is not normal. And yet it's the most fun you've ever had. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The thing that jumped out to me though was someone compliments you. And this jumped out to me because this is the same feel. Like whenever someone compliments something I've done, I go, come on. I don't say that. I've known now. This is my thing, which is like, oh, that's so kind of you. That's what I say now but what my inside of my head says is like, what are you talking about? So what is that when you say that? And this is for both of you, at Lisa G, if the feeling also is the same for you. When someone compliments you, is it because the inside, like you feel weird about it because the inside of your head is telling you the opposite? Or it's just that is a weird social interaction. Like, I still don't know how to understand the fan-artist relationship. That still is something that's so puzzling to me. What is it for the both of you? Is it that, or is it like your own brain telling you the opposite?
Well, I think I thought I was very terrible. Like there was one side where I was just like fearless, I think, and I was willing to throw myself out and just do anything. But I will say my voice inside would be, they'd be like, oh my God, that's an amazing show. And my voice inside would be, did you even listen to it? Like it would immediately be that. And it would be because of all the negative stuff that I would ingest that was real. That was us being told that we were crappy. And I also didn't have the knowledge, I don't think, about music, in that there was enough that I'd be able to stand strong and go, you know what? We have a style. This is kind of what we're doing, and being proud in where we were at. And I think that's where I think I was kind of at. Like, I think that it would have been great if I could have gone, well, look where we are. Look how far we've gone. Look at how many people like us. Like our 30-year anniversary record, I finally had the moment to truly meet the fans as this older person reflecting. And my heart was like so big, and like seeing who our fans were, what really made me happy. Like I was like, oh my God, thank you. You're like healing my creative soul tonight. It felt like. I don't know. That makes sense.
I think for me, it was just the inequality or the disparity, the artist on the stage and the audience member in the pit. That really bothered me. And so I was always trying to figure out a way to break that barrier. And yeah, to just, yeah, it was also like against myself. Like, why do I need to be trying to achieve this position that is elevating myself? Why do I need that? What is wrong with me that I am so desperate to be loved by the faceless masses that I am doing this at any cost? I often didn't listen when other members in my band were having problems or wanted to take a break. I didn't, I was oblivious to like the big picture sometimes. It was always like more equals better, faster equals better. Like, I'm busier than you. We're doing more than ever before. We need to have more people in the audience. If there's less people than last time, it's a failure. Like, what's wrong with us? Like, we need to be working all the time. We need to be always on. We need to like suck it up, like that was kind of my view. Like, we're wasting this opportunity. Any day we're not given 110, we're failing. We're failing ourselves, So it was more like that. And so I hated that about myself, obviously. And I was like, why do I need this? What the hell is going on with me? Why is this success ultimately? And eventually I did make a movie called Learning How to Fail, because I needed to learn how to fail and be good with that. When things go wrong or things just don't go where you think they are, that's an opportunity. It's not a failure.
Yeah.
It's an opening to a whole new thing. So still learning.
Yeah. So, okay, wait. So where did that drive come from? Because the things that I'm trying to juggle in my head, to go back to the juggling at the very beginning, do we even say that on tape? Anyway, the thing that's in my head that you said before was like when you were in high school, you got into learning about communism. I think you described your parents kind of hippie-ish. I don't know if you use that phrase, but definitely like that kind of like, you can do anything, like makes me think of that.
But not hippies at all.
Not
like
hippies.
The farthest from hippies. Like, picture like super straight people living in a small town listening to country music. Like not hippies at all. So just, yeah, I didn't come up with, nobody knew anything about music or art or cinema or nothing. It was like blank slate. So yeah, but amazing people. Yeah.
Well, wait, as a side parenthetical, is this Vernon, British Columbia?
Vernon. I was born in Prince George in the far north. I lived in Nanaimo, a coal mining town on Vancouver Island, then Vernon, then Vancouver, but also a little bit of Vancouver in there. My family was from that area, but yeah, small towns. Yeah. Vernon.
What's with the moving about?
Oh, my dad had a job. He got a job when he was in, he's just out of the Navy, got married to my mom, and he took a summer job at the phone company. It was supposed to be for the summer, and he ended up working there for 30 years. So one of the reasons my parents were so into me, especially my dad, was because I was living the freewheeling life that my dad would have loved to have lived. But he was like, my mom stayed home and my dad went to work, and they were like straight up. They were always there for us. I never had to worry about anything. But, they sacrificed a lot to give us the perfect middle-class life.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then end this parenthetical and go back to the original question, which was, okay, so in your teenage years, you're kind of soaked in communism or, philosophy. You say you're talking about that stuff. And then, sorry, as another little parenthetical, the idea of like hierarchy that you were talking about, like the hierarchy between like artist and fan, like you don't like that. I also don't like that. Right. And that feeling weird, I'm assuming that comes out of that. But then it seems like it is in direct opposition to this idea of a drive and the way that you were describing how an ambitious drive in you caused you to ignore other people. Like this is my 20s coming back to me where I'm just like, yeah, I was so ambitious that like the feelings of like, say, my bandmates, I was like, no, we have to do this. And then we do this. And then we do this. And then it was sketch comedy. And I was like, no, we have to do this. And we have to do this. And everyone who I loved collaborating with didn't have that same drive. And so eventually they kind of like faded away, and because they didn't want to work with me. And then, yeah, okay, so I did make this my living. I was able to do the thing, but also in a way that was very abrasive at the time. So that really resonated with me when you said that. But what is going on when you're feeling these contradictions, and you can obviously someone can feel contradictory feelings, but how does those things work out in your heart or your brain?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just being in your 20s. Like that's the decade where you're just raw everything. You're making so many mistakes and you're burning it all down constantly, doing such crazy, stupid, wonderful things. You're on top of your game in some ways. You got energy to burn. You're just like, so that's just that. Then there's like personality wise, obviously I had this, thing in me. The way I was raised, strong matriarchal line, very women in control, like doing stuff, no matter what their, aspects were. So it's just in me. Ukrainian, we're crazy that way. And then, yeah, just the DIY, I prefer to say DIT now, do it together. It was that time where everyone was kind of figuring it out and doing it themselves, literally. So I think all those things, it was just a mishmash. And then, yeah, that's just how it manifested for me. I wanted to ride the wave. I was like, I'm here, I'm on it, I'm not getting off. So, but at the same time, just like, but really, what's going on here? So, just that there was thankfully some self-reflection going on. I wasn't a complete super id out there, just like, so yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that was I guess the thing is like, if someone can keep those contradictory things together in whatever way, you can keep going as that person. And I don't know how difficult it is. It broke for me. I eventually had to deal with it because I'm just like, yes, I am very ambitious, but I don't want to keep alienating people through this desire to, it wasn't even fame. It was just to like be able to make things.
Yeah.
And I guess have other people pay for it.
Yeah. Well, the universe saved me, it just opened up new paths. I just kept traveling my life. It's not, it just happens. We continue to evolve and change. That's good. It's one of the good things about being
an ambitious person. I think my argument would be like you need somebody to go, this is what we want to do. And we need to do this. So you need somebody. Like the thing I love so much about Cub and the experience is that there was this vision and a plan. And as much as I have one half of my brain that is like, let's go wild, I really liked the fact that I learned so much from you guys. And I loved how we toured. And I loved that we had these rules where like there was the shotgun who helped the driver, then the people in the back could chill out and do whatever, and then we would all choose what we were going to eat, took turns. Like Lisa said, the money was all pooled. Like we heard so many bands that had crazy shit going on, and I felt safe in the way Cub was kind of organized. Like I think there's also those parts of it that right now maybe we're delving into our psyche, but there was also these other parts that I felt safe in the way that, I don't know, we took care of each other to the best of our ability in our 20-ish brains and bodies, but some of it was just magical in that way.
Yeah, a lot of it was. There are so many good times. This is an interesting talk because we have not really talked about this in depth before. So thanks for the opportunity. But yeah, there were a lot of good times too. It wasn't a veil of tears every day.
Oh yeah. Of course. When you were teenagers, was there a thing you wanted from your lives outside of just the vague kind of like emotional feeling or the drive or whatever? Was there like a concrete, I want to do X?
I did not have that. I had interests that I like would go, oh, now I want to be a fashion designer. Now I want to open an art gallery. Now I want to be in a band. Like I was always doing that kind of thing. I had zero plan with money. Like, like I wanted to do, if I wanted to do, one time I wanted to be a butcher. Well, that didn't work. I ended up being the bag boy. But anyway, I thought I was going to be a butcher because I wanted to take pictures of girls in dresses in the locker room. But that was my idea. And then I was the bag boy. And then I was like, oh, well, I need a job, so I'm going to keep it. But I don't even know why I told that. But anyway, I was always just doing like whatever the next thing was. And Cub was just perfectly timed for the next thing. And I just bought a drum kit. Like, it was like, what? I'm in a band now? My mom's like, what do you play? I'm like, the drum.
Did you, when you're flitting about, is there like, is that like, hey, this is what I enjoy. I'm just enjoying this kind of moment. Or was there even any kind of recognition of that? It's just like, I asked this stuff because for me, I was just kind of reacting a lot of the times. I wasn't there until like maybe my late 20s. I wasn't making real conscious decisions. I was just, hey, don't yell at me. What can I do where someone's not going to yell at me, or I'm not going to be in trouble? But I also am trying to do the thing I want to do, which again, who knows what it is. Were you just flitting about, Lisa G?
Well, I think it's a combo. It's a combo of reacting to stuff, reacting against stuff. And then also I said yes to a lot of things that I was ill prepared for, but I was just like, sounds good. Like now I'll do that. So I think a little bit of self-direction, probably less so, but I certainly was trying to put myself in positions where something would happen. Like I love what I was looking at bands all the time. I was photographing them. And then suddenly I was like, oh, well, maybe that's something I could do. Again, like Lisa's story, I didn't think about practicing. It was posing. It was wearing outfits. It was going to talking to people.
And Lisa also ran a very successful kind of indie anarchic art gallery. And was doing that when we met. Like we had already, nowadays, like people are like, oh, I'm 35. I wonder what I'm going to do with my life. But back then, by the time you were 25, you traveled. I'd had avant-garde poetry magazines I was part of. Lisa ran the gallery. There was all this performance art going on. I had my own small press. I had been the editor of a local music magazine. Like we had done a ton of stuff already at the age of, I'm a couple of years older than Lisa. So I was 26, Lisa was 24. But you were just in this milieu where things are happening all the time and people were doing a lot of different stuff. Like it wasn't unusual to be a painter and a musician or a performance artist and a poet or, just all this stuff was happening. And then we'd be tapped into all these various groups from like, the rape relief shelter and women's issues to college radio to, again, art gallery, art scenes and stuff like that. All was happening at the same time. So we did a lot. I grew up just wanting to sing. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to travel. And I'm living my dream. I'm living my childhood dream. I wrote a letter to myself when I was 13. It was, Dear 23, do you live in California? Are you in a band? Do you still like the Bee Gees? Those were the three big questions for myself. Those things, aside from the Bee Gees, by the time I was 33, it took me another decade longer, but by the time I was 33, I was in a band, living in California and living the dream, learning how to surf or whatever. All those things were happening. So, the childhood dreams, it is, when we look back, what was meaningful to us when we were tiny kids before we even knew. And often we find ourselves back there, those little seeds, the performer in Lisa G, it's out there. It's part of who we are today still. And that gives me a good feeling about life paths.
Yeah, that's actually a very sweet place to end. Thank you both for being on the show. I could keep talking, but I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was such a delight.
Thank you. I really enjoy your questions and I like your podcast. Like it's very impressive how you talk to people. I love your questions. I love the conversation. So thank you.
Thanks for taking us to new places. It was a joy.
It's very kind of you both. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye, oh, 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 bye. Bye.